What's up, everybody? If you're new here, my name's Metaphysics Mike, and I'm on a mission to help Christians break free from the traditional errors of the forefathers of the Christian faith. First, I want to send a shout out to all my channel members. Guys, I really appreciate you. I'm doing my best to keep the content coming and to be something insightful, valuable to you that aids you in your understanding. Also, shout out to people who get the merch. I see you, and I also appreciate that. So tonight we are going to be reviewing some clips from a popular Christian podcast by Christ Point Church. Chances are, if you're on Christian YouTube, you have seen this man's face right here. This is Josh Howerton. He is I believe the lead pastor at this church. And on this podcast, they like to talk about, all things related to Christianity. And I was watching some clips from this one, and listen, I'm just going to tell you the truth. I am pretty fed up with Christians who should know better, who should have a desire to want the truth, whatever that is, that they don't do their due diligence and they teach things which are wrong. And it's usually surrounding pet doctrines, things that they do not want to be challenged, they don't want to let go of. And in this case, early Christianity had a strong influence by Constantine, but the people on this podcast are peddling a false narrative about what that really was. What his role was. Did he have influence on believing Jesus is God? And I got to address these. We have got to start calling these guys out. It is not okay. And I'm going to go ahead and pull up, see the comments. What's up, Power Tool? You want to join this? Amanda, what's up? Thank you for joining. The Real God, what's up? Thanks for joining. All right, I'll put a join link for you if you want to come on up. Let me see. What do you got to do? You got to click this. All right, Will, I'll do this for you right now. I just put the link in chat. Okay, so listen. Let's go ahead and dive in to the claims that these guys are going to start making. And notice their attitude. All right, listen to this.
These three guys start talking about where we got the Bible, Constantine, and there's a lot of shared ignorance here. And I thought, let's react to this, and then let's real quick, let's talk about how did we get the Bible that we have, and why can we be confident in it? Why these 27 books of the New Testament? All right, let's go.
Good.
Okay, so do you catch that there? He's saying, man, we got to handle these people who are ignorant, and they're about to do a reaction themselves to, you got Andrew Schultz there, the comedian, you got Sink Uger from the Young Turks, and I can't remember the other guy's name, but check this out. That's about to backfire on him. Okay, the ignorance. Here we go.
No.
That's a
Really?
Tell me if I got the story right. Christianity was created by Constantine, and Constantine essentially needed a mascot.
Wrong.
And the mascot was Jesus.
Wrong.
look,
Christianity was not created by Constantine. I think Constantine
codified.
Yeah, he codified he basically made it the official religion of the Roman Empire.
What do you put a
Pause.
face to it?
Yeah. First of all, nope.
I'll go ahead and say the problem with this video is pretty much everything.
Okay, so I'm going to fast forward a bit to where we get to his comments, and it's just over the hour mark. Here we go.
The water cooler at your workplace.
Okay.
Then I'll do a couple of quick things here.
Okay.
There's more myths about Constantine and Christianity than you can imagine. So let me just hit. These are things you'll hear around the water cooler at your workplace.
Yeah, and you're about to peddle more myths on a Christian podcast. What?
And now, from now on, dear Live Free listener, you can be the person that's going wrong, and you can correct it. Myth number one about Constantine Christianity. We already hit it, that he made Christianity the official religion of Rome. Wrong. He decriminalized Christianity at the Edict of Milan in 313. There was.
Okay. So, listen, he's technically right on this one. Technically. And he's about to tell you why here in a moment. but I'm going to go ahead and pull up and just tell you myself. Okay, so Catholicism wasn't made the official state religion of Rome until Emperor Theodosius. Okay, so that is true. However, I want you to notice something that even here, this is Encyclopedia Britannica states on this. All right. After Constantine, every branch of Christendom had to work with rulers who claimed to profess its faith, in the manner of which the two main branches of the church dealt with the state and had considerable impact on their development. Okay, so in other words, yeah, it was Theodosius who put the final nail in that coffin, but Constantine's the one who harvested the tree, carved it up, right, put it together. He laid the foundation. So you just got these guys laughing at that claim, right? Oh, that Constantine made Christianity the state religion of Rome. And like, again, technically they're right, but it's really not that wrong, though. He kind of did start that path. So you see that he's just kind of minimizing it, right? He could point out, well, I mean, yeah, Constantine started to merge the two. I mean, Rome was already so influenced by their ideas of their gods, right? The one author I read put it that the religion of the state and like the government of the state, often those were already sort of seen as one. Look, the point is that they're downplaying it, and it only gets worse from here. Let's see what else he's got to say.
Was a future Roman emperor, Theodosius, in the year 380, that the Edict of Thessalonica made it the official religion of Rome. But if I understand correctly, he didn't then criminalize all other religions. He just said, that's us. We're a Christian nation, etc. Number two, myth number two, Constantine decided that Jesus was God. It was around Constantine that they went, oh, Jesus is God. That's totally insane, because Jesus literally says in things in the New Testament, things like, before Abraham was, I am. Like, he just openly just says, like, yeah, I'm God.
It's in the Bible.
Okay, whoa. Let's just take this step by step. All right, so he laughed at the idea that Constantine could have had any effect on the Christian belief that Jesus is God. Okay, let's challenge that right now. You ready? Fact number one. The word homoousios in the Nicene Creed, guess who was the most significant person in getting that inserted into Creed? Anybody? Do we need a drum roll? Constantine. Okay. Here's the scholar Bernard Laus. He says the decisive catchword of the Nicene Confession, homoousios, or of one substance, comes from no less a person than the emperor himself. And to this present day, no one has cleared up the problem of where the emperor got the term from. So, yeah, Constantine, he didn't, invent the doctrine that, Jesus is God. Like, you're kind of obfuscating on that, aren't you? You're kind of twisting that. He's the one who argued for the inclusion of the core piece that led to believing Jesus is equal in divinity with the Father. I mean, that's kind of significant, don't you think? Like, how is he keeping it 100%? He's not really here. And you really need to think about this, because where does this word homoousios come from? No one's cleared up where he got it from. Bernard Laus thinks he probably got it from Hosius of Cordova. I actually would probably hold that he got it from Lactantius, because Lactantius was one of Constantine's religious advisors, and he quotes a famous Egyptian tractate which uses the word homoousios to him 14 times in letters between them. In this work, Poimandres is the oldest extant manuscript we still have today of this word being used. Here's a scholar, Christopher Stead. He cataloged every use of the word homoousios prior to Nicaea. And I mean, him and along with other awesome scholars have proved conclusively, like, this was being used by pagans. But friends, that is nothing but a fact. That is just the truth here. But you have guys like this who are just, they're laughing at this. They're scoffing at this. Like, this is irrelevant or something. I'm so tired of seeing this, like, very ignorant attitude from these guys. He should know better. I've watched a bunch of his videos. He's got a lot of W's. Man has wisdom. He's also a great teacher. But I mean, there's a time where you have to stop peddling false traditional narratives. Just because of what? You want to save your pet doctrine, the Trinity, right? Like, that's not honest. That's not good. All right, let's keep going. Oh, actually, no, wait a second. Let's back up a bit. And did you hear what he said about that? So obviously, I mean, Jesus claims to be God. What was his evidence? Let's hear that one more time.
There's in things in the New Testament, things like before Abraham was, I am. Like he just openly just says, like, yeah, I'm God.
It's in the Bible.
Unbelievable. Like, it's crazy you even have to say this, but like, here's the thing. Saying I am is not saying I am God. Like, saying I am God is literally saying I am God. How is this real life? We even have to explain this. Okay, so this passage here, John 8, verse 58 here, right? Truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham was, I am. Now, this statement, I am, is really a contextual statement, right? He's proclaiming to be something, but what is that? That just means I am that thing. So obviously the context determines the meaning of I am, what he's proclaiming to be. This also appears in other places, and no one thinks that when they say ego e me, they're proclaiming, the divine name or something, which we'll refute here in a second. But if you look here, just look at verse 56 first. Your father Abraham rejoiced that he would see my day. He saw it and was glad. Now, prior to this, in verse 53, he's asked by these Pharisees, who do you make yourself out to be? So I'm just trying to simplify this, okay? Who do you make yourself out to be? He's saying he's the one that his father Abraham rejoiced in would see my day. Now, what is that? Well, let's go back to the passage he's citing. This is in reference to the promise of the Messiah that was given through Abraham. That's what Abraham saw, and that's through this promise, right? Where God told him, and in your offspring shall all nations of the earth be blessed. You also have Paul here in Galatians chapter 3, who says that this offspring is Christ. The promise is made through Abraham, okay? So this, in John 8:58, is Jesus proclaiming to be the Messiah. It is not that he's proclaiming to be God. And, I always like to bring this up at the end of John's book because I think it really puts into perspective what's on John's mind, right? John wrote it. What did he want us to believe? Well, he actually tells us towards the end. Look, you even see they label it the purpose of this book. What is that purpose? He says, these are written so that you may believe that Jesus is the Messiah and the Son of God. And that by believing this, right, you have life in his name. So not to believe that Jesus is God, not to believe that Jesus is equal in substance with the Father, right, homoousios, right? Not to believe that Jesus is one person with two natures in a hypostatic union, right? What is it? John wrote his book so that we would believe that Jesus is the Messiah and the Son of God. Okay, so that is not just the context of John 8:58. That is the context of the entire book of John. All right, awesome. Now let's go on.
It's like in the Bible, way before Constantine. Number 2, will you toss that little Megiddo mosaic thing up? So this is, can you, see if we can get that. So we have even external to the Bible evidence of people believing Jesus was God way before Constantine and worshiping him as God. So this is called the Megiddo mosaic. It was discovered in ancient Israel. It's a little, well, it's a mosaic. It was at the bottom, the floor of a chapel.
You guys have heard of this, right?
That thing was made in an estimated 230 AD. And I'm gonna read you the inscription of what it says. The God-loving Akeptus, that's my best shot, has offered the table, listen to this language, to God, Jesus Christ as a memorial. So in the year 230 AD, 100 years before Constantine, you have outside the Bible evidence Christians were already worshiping Jesus as God.
Yes.
So
okay, all right. So what just happened there was a conflation. All right. To conflate something is to basically take something in its more true fundamental form and to turn it into something else without good justification. And that's what he just did. So Jesus can be called God, but that doesn't make him God by his identity. God can just be predicated to him in terms of some quality or trait. And this is in the Bible. It's actually sort of weird he would even bring this up because, that inscription predates it by, Constantine 100 years. The New Testament does this and predates him by even further than that, right? So, I mean, if I were just going to give you an example real quick, we could just pull up Hebrews 1:8. This is a famous passage. Trinitarians, like to use this, but it actually supports the Unitarian position, right? But of the Son, he says, your throne, O God, is forever and ever. So he's talking to the Son and calling him God. Now, here's the thing. The original language doesn't include this capital letter here. It doesn't include, that's not in the original, okay? Most of it was written in uncials, which is all uppercase or lowercase, all right? So that capital G is actually the translator's interpretation about what type of theos this is. So if I pull up the interlinear and we come to Hebrews 1:8 and we come to this word theos that is in question here. Okay, this word can mean the capital G God, but folks, it can also just mean lowercase g gods, something that is divine, all right? In its most essential basic case, it just means a deity, all right? So we can even see this in the Old Testament, by the way. Let me show you another receipt. So if we go to Exodus chapter 7, verse 1, and the Lord said to Moses, see, I have made you like God to Pharaoh. Some translations don't even have that like there, by the way. They'll just say, I have made you God. Okay, this is the Hebrew word for God, which is Elohim. I have made you as God. Okay, same basic idea. So this word has the semantic range, and that can include both the Almighty God and exalted human kings and angels. So, what's going on in Hebrews 1:8? He's quoting Psalm 45, where we know this was written about a human king. Look at this. Psalm 45. And we're still in the interlinear, so we'll come here, ESV. Look at this. Okay. Did you know this? Hebrews 1:8 is quoting Psalm 45, your throne, O God. Guess who this God is? This is the king. These verses were addressed to the human king of Israel. Look up scholarship about this, okay? And this causes many problems, by the way, because the next verse also said, therefore, God, your God. Okay, so wait a second. This God has a God? God, by nature, is the highest and most supreme being and cannot have a God. So the only way this statement makes sense is if this God is a lesser being than the highest God, right? So God is just something being predicated to him. It's not something he is by his identity, right? That's not like a profession that he is Yahweh. These words in their language had a far more fluid use than we do today. All right, so that's just a nothing burger. All right, I'm a Unitarian, and I believe He can be called God, all right? He embodies the roles, the attributes of God. I believe he reveals who God is in his nature, right? Righteous, without sin. This is all a part of why God actually exalts him. Okay, so let's get to the other claims he makes here about Constantine.
No. 16:2. On the first day of the week, Christians had already gathered together to break bread.
Bible.
Yeah. Paul goes, hey, on the first day of the week, when we were gathered together to break bread, Paul talked with them. It's implied New Testament Christians had already wrong.
Okay, so
That's
I think
apparently like a very common myth.
Oh, here it is.
That
Sorry.
he made Sunday the day that Christians. And then number 3, the other myth about Constantine is that he made Sunday the day that Christians worship. That's apparently like a very common myth. And no.
Okay, myth. Is that a myth? Is that a myth, chat? No, that is not a myth. Okay, and for some evidence here, I give you back to Encyclopedia Britannica. Okay, the Roman Emperor Constantine introduced the first civil legislation concerning Sunday. He decreed that all work should cease on this day. The law aimed at providing a time for worship. This man, he opens up by telling you, man, all these ignorant people, right? We got to show them. And let me show you how to be the one and tell them they're wrong, right? And here he is peddling myths. Yes, Constantine was the first one to issue legislation, okay, that changed the day of worship. Oh my gosh. These guys have got to be called out. We've got to call them out more. All right. Look at some of the other support he gets for this.
No, number 1, like wrong.
Bible.
No, actually, that was right. And you're just, unfortunately, insufferably ignorant in this moment.
Yeah. You have evidence of this in the Bible, verses like Acts 20, verse 7, where Paul goes, hey, on the first day of the week, when we were gathered together to break bread, Paul talked with them. It's implied New Testament Christians had already changed their day of worship to Sunday, the day Jesus rose from the dead. You have this in the...
Okay, guys, like, at what point do we just like make this level of ignorance illegal? Like, where do we draw the line? Okay, like, God establishes the Sabbath at creation. He creates in 6 days, he rests the 7th. He reveals his Torah to Moses. He tells them all, the 7th day, the Sabbath, is the day of the week you take off from rest. It's focused on worship, right? And family, all right? They keep it for thousands of years. Not an inch of text saying that they changed it, that God changed his mind, that there's some other institution. And this guy says they gathered on the first day of the week to break bread. Is the evidence that they had, quote, already changed it. No, that is not justified. What this is saying, this is going to sound so wild, right? But this is saying that they gathered on the first day of the week to break bread. That's what this is saying. Okay, it doesn't say anything about the Sabbath. It doesn't say that it was changed. And if you were paying attention, you would know that actually they were keeping the Sabbath still. For example, let's go down. Let's start with Acts chapter 13. Let's go to verse 14. Okay, Paul and all his companions did a bunch of traveling, and then what did they do? And then on the Sabbath day, they went to the synagogue and sat down. Interesting, keeping the command to assemble in the synagogue on the Sabbath day. It's almost like they're still keeping the Sabbath. Check this one out. They just did a bunch of preaching, and the people actually asked them. So because they did not recognize them nor understand the utterances of the prophets, which are read every Sabbath, fulfilled by them, condemning him. Okay, no, that's not it. That's not what I'm looking for. Give me a moment. Oh, it's further down. Okay, it's 42. Check this out. So they just got done preaching, And it says, as they went out, the people begged that these things might be told to them on the next Sabbath. So you see this consistent theme, right? They are still keeping the Sabbath. They're preaching the gospel on the Sabbath. Verse 44, the next Sabbath, almost the whole city gathered together to hear the word of God. Where is this guy getting that? Obviously, Acts chapter 20, verse 7 just shows that the Sabbath was changed. Because it says they were gathered together to bake bread. Like, guys, this is the type of just traditional peddling of narratives that just isn't true that we've got to call out. So those were the main claims. That's pretty much the what I had for you. He claimed that Constantine, he laughed at the idea that Constantine changed the state religion to Catholicism. Again, that's technically true, but he's the one who built the infrastructure between the church and the state in order to do that. Okay, so I mean that's just basic historical knowledge. I don't think they played fair with that. They were downplaying things, and then they laughed and scoffed at the idea that Constantine had any influence whatsoever on the idea that Jesus is God, when he played a critical role. It's unbelievable. And by the way, the text for this is the letter written by Eusebius. This is such a crazy story, actually. So the word homoousios had a negative connotext because it was essentially a metaphor drawn from material objects. Again, this had been priorly used by pagans for their gods. This is why you have scholars like G.L. Prestige saying that even down to the council, that homoousios still had this idea that they didn't like. It had a negative connotext. Eusebius was one of them. Okay, he was an Origenist. His whole church was. And so he had to write them a letter telling them why he signed a new creed using this word. And he talks a lot about Constantine, okay, and the role that Constantine played. And I really want to make this clear, all right? I'm not claiming that Constantine invented the term. I'm saying it is a fairly common and well-known fact that Constantine was the decisive force who championed, who interpreted, and argued for the adoption of homoousios as a means of unifying all the controversy around the Arians. Okay, so that is a fact. This man downplaying that, laughing at it, is just quite ridiculous. And then, of course, they claimed that he didn't change the day of worship in Rome to Sunday when he did. Right? So that does it. I got to start calling more of these guys out. They can't get away with this. This is how Trinitarianism continues to live on, because people are ignorant of the truth behind it, right? One of the first creedal statement that doesn't even mention the Trinity, by the way, it had to be updated again at the Council of Constantinople to clarify the Holy Spirit. They had to borrow from pagans this word homoousios, okay? So obviously, I don't believe the Trinity is true, and I think it's time we call this stuff out, all right? So I'm going to go ahead and pull up chat now. If you got, what are your thoughts? Is it not irritating? I think these guys, many of them should know better. If you want to believe in the Trinity, you can do that, but don't lie. Don't be saying things that aren't true, right? Don't be trying to paint a false narrative. That's unjustified. What's up, Sean? I see you hit the thumbs up. I really appreciate that. Don't know if you're still here, but that means a lot. Thank you. Yeah, so those are my thoughts on this. Amanda says, God can be a mighty ruler, which Jesus certainly is, but he is not the Most High God because he still has a God. Correct. Bars from Amanda. Holocaust says, keep calling him out. Excellent work. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Hey, Secreto, thanks for joining. I appreciate it. Tim, Constantine the sun worshiper. tons of evidence that he still continued in his Hermetic traditions after his conversion. That is correct. Sean says, great job, Mike, showing Hebrews run that the second God has a God, and it is clearly used in the Old Testament many times of kings and men as Messiah. Absolutely right. Thank you, Sean, for joining. Thank you for the comment. Power to apologetics. Therefore, God, your God, right? That's the story. You got to tell the truth. Shame the devil, right? Landlock says, is the Trinity a salvation issue to Unitarians? So I'm going to tell you no, all right? Because I think some people are just confused, they're lost, they're deceived. But there are some who I think have chosen human philosophical tradition over the commandments of God, which is a rejection of God's will for their life. And that actually can include the Unitarian view. So, for example, if we look at John chapter 17, verse 3, these are the words of Jesus, okay? So he says, Father. That's who he's talking to, Father. He says, and this is eternal life, right? Salvation, that they may know you. Who's the you? Who's he talking to? The Father, okay? The only true God. So this is the predicate, only true God, that's being attributed to the Father. And then Jesus is actually distinguished from this God when it says and, with the conjunction here. This is actually creating a distinction, right? Jesus and Jesus Christ whom you have sent. So that it's both, right? We do need Christ. But it's also, you need to know the one true God, who is Jesus as God, by the way. That's also in John chapter 20, right? Where he says, I'm ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God. Yes, Jesus has a God, and that's the Father. Hard fact. So you can argue that depending on how you view it. I really try and not be the final judge and jury on many of these people who I think they just don't see it, at least not yet. All right, well, that's going to do it for the stream. I don't see any other questions. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Give it a like if you have enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't. I really appreciate your support, all the comments and engagements. And many times it makes my day. It's so encouraging. So genuinely, thank you guys. Share them with someone else who may enjoy it. We've got to start calling people out on peddling the false narratives that support false beliefs, which in this case happens to be the doctrine of the Trinity. All right. Thank you. I appreciate you guys. Much love. God bless.